I never thought I'd find myself in this kind of mess. Honestly, it feels like I've been punched in the gut every morning since I discovered the truth. We've been planning this wedding for months, my fiancée, Emily, and me. It was supposed to be perfect. I could see her smile in my mind, hear her laughter echoing through the house, feel the warmth of her hand in mine. But all that's been shattered now. It started with a stupid suspicion, a vague hunch that wouldn't settle. She'd been acting different, more distracted, hurried. Little things that didn't make sense. She'd leave her phone around more often, and I'd catch her glancing at messages she'd quickly hide. Nothing concrete, just a feeling that something was off. One night, I decided to do what I never wanted to do. I snuck into her phone. I didn't want to invade her privacy, but I had to be sure. My palms sweat just thinking about it. I knew the password. She told me once jokingly, and I unlocked it with trembling fingers. It was like opening a door I'd been trying to ignore. And there it was, a string of messages between her and our best friend, Jake. They'd been messaging constantly, late into the night, almost every day. I saw the way they called each other babe and honey, the flirty emojis, the secret little jokes that only meant something if you knew the background. My stomach clenched so hard I thought I'd throw up. I scrolled through their conversation, and every word dripped with betrayal. They'd been planning to meet up, even before I proposed. A part of me wanted to scream, to shout at her, to smash the phone. But I just sat there, frozen, staring at the screen. My vision blurred, and I could feel the blood draining from my face. How long had this been going on? Was I just some fool who hadn't seen the signs? I kept scrolling. Their plans for a weekend getaway, their jokes about how she'd never suspect, the way Jake called her my girl. It was all right there, the proof I needed. My fingers trembled as I closed the phone and looked up at the ceiling, feeling the weight of it crushing down on me. I remember laying back on the bed, clutching the phone like it was a bomb about to explode. My mind raced wild, trying to connect the dots. How could Emily do this? We'd been through so much together. I thought she loved me, or at least that's what I wanted to believe. But now I wasn't so sure anymore. Was I just a placeholder, a convenience until she found someone better? I kept telling myself that I had to stay calm. I had to think. I couldn't just lash out without knowing what I was doing. But the anger was bubbling up, hot and thick, making my chest tight. I wanted to confront her right then, but I knew that wouldn't be enough. That wouldn't be enough to get my power back. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. I didn't want to destroy her, not exactly. I just wanted her to feel the pain she'd caused me. I wanted her to see what she'd done, how deeply she'd hurt me. But I also knew I had to be clever. I had to be precise. I started gathering evidence, screenshots of their messages, copies of the plans, everything I'd found. I wanted to be ready. I wanted her to realize I wasn't some fool who'd forgive and forget. I was. Not after what I saw. I still remember the way my stomach twisted every time I thought about her lying to me, smiling in my face, pretending everything was fine. It made me sick. I've always been easygoing, the kind to forgive and forget. But this was a different level. She crossed a line I thought no one would dare cross. The worst part, I used to trust her so much. I'd done everything for her, worked late, sacrificed my own dreams, made space in my life just to make her happy. And now I wondered if any of that mattered. Was I just a fool who loved someone who never loved me back? I told myself that I would handle this the right way, that I'd get my revenge, but in a way she'd never see coming, that I'd make her regret the day she ever decided to betray me. I don't know what I'll do yet. I just know I can't stay quiet anymore. I sit here now, staring at the evidence on my phone, feeling the cold dread seep through my skin. I keep asking myself, is this what love really was? Or was I just fooling myself all along? I don't have an answer yet, but I do know one thing. She's about to learn that you can't cheat on someone and get away with it, not without consequences. And that's where I am, ready to make her pay, one way or another. If I don't do something, I'll never be able to trust myself again. Maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm right. But I promise her betrayal will not be the end of my story. I spent the next few days in a fog, replaying everything I found over and over. Every time I looked at her messages, my stomach twisted tighter. I could still see her smile in those texts, hear her voice in the emojis. It felt like my heart was trying to squeeze itself out of my chest. I kept thinking about what I'd do next, how I'd confront her, what kind of response I expected. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't just walk into her room and start yelling. That would be too raw, too impulsive. I had to plan, had to be smart. I had to make her realize she'd lost control of me, that I was no longer a naive fool who turned the other cheek. I started by doing something I never thought I'd do. I called Jake. I needed to hear his voice, see what kind of man he really was. I waited on the line for what felt like forever, my hand trembling as I gripped my phone. When he finally picked up, I didn't waste time. "Jake," I said, voice steady but cold, "we need to talk. I saw your messages with Emily." There was a long silence on the other end, then he cleared his throat. "Look, man, I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. Don't make this bigger than it is." I let that hang in the air. "You knew she was engaged. You knew I was planning to marry her. How could you do this?" I asked, voice rising just enough to sound controlled, but inside my fists were clenched so tight my knuckles ached. Jake hesitated, then said, "It was a mistake. We got caught up in the moment. I swear I didn't want it to go this far." "Didn't want it to go this far," I echoed, the bitterness thick in my throat. "You're telling me you didn't plan this, that you didn't want to sleep with her because I've got your messages, every one of them. It looks like you two have been planning this for weeks." He was quiet. I could hear him breathing like he was trying to find the right words. "I'm sorry, man, I really am, but you gotta understand, she's different with me. She's different with you too. It's complicated." "Complicated," I spat. "That's rich. You knew she was engaged and you still went after her. You're no different from her. Both of you are just selfish." There was a pause. Then he said, "Look, I don't want to lose my friendship with you. I screwed up, okay? But I swear I'll make it right, whatever you want." That was the moment I knew I had to strike hard, because I'd given him the chance to back out, the chance to say he'd end it. But I could see now he was just as guilty, just as complicit. The next step was clear. I had to make her see that I wasn't the fool she thought I was, that I'd found out everything. I needed proof she'd be unable to deny. So I decided to set a trap. I wanted her to stumble into it naturally, to see that I knew the full extent of her betrayal. I went through her social media, pieced together her plans, then made a few fake accounts, profiles that looked just like hers, but with enough differences to be convincing. I started liking her posts again, leaving comments that only someone close would recognize. I wanted her to feel watched, to get nervous. That night I carefully inserted a message into her inbox, something innocent enough to seem accidental. I used her own words, her own tone to make it convincing. "Hey, I saw someone was looking at your profile. Hope it's not anyone I should worry about." The moment I pressed send, I felt that familiar rush, an intoxicating mixture of anger and excitement. And sure enough, she responded faster than I expected. Her reply was immediate, defensive. "What do you mean? Who's watching me?" A small smile crept onto my face. I knew I was close. This wasn't just about catching her anymore. It was about making her realize I wasn't the dumb guy who just rolled over. The next morning I listened to her pacing around the house, her voice tight with worry. I could picture her staring at her phone, trying to figure out who had been spying on her. I could almost taste her fear. That's when I decided to push a little more. I left her a message, one that would hit her hard. "I know everything, Emily. The messages, the plans, the lies. I'm not going to just walk away. We need to talk. No more hiding. No more pretending everything was okay." When she finally called me, her voice was shaky. "What's going on? Who's doing this?" I kept my tone calm, clinical. "That's for you to figure out. All I know is I saw what you did. I know about Jake, about your little secret, and I want answers." There was silence. Then she whispered, "Please don't do anything stupid. I love you." That's when I realized she was trying to manipulate me, but I wasn't fooled anymore. I felt the cold fire burning in my chest. I was done waiting for her to come clean. I'd already set the wheels in motion, and the next steps would change everything. If she thought she could lie her way out of this, she was dead wrong. I had enough now to make her regret ever crossing me. Whatever it took, I was going to make her see that betrayal had consequences, and I wasn't going to be the one paying the price anymore. The days that followed felt like walking on a razor's edge. Every morning I'd wake up, stomach twisted tight, the memory of her message, her voice echoing in my head. It was like I'd become some kind of detective in my own life, piecing clues together, watching her every move, waiting for her to slip up. I kept my plan close to the chest, but I knew I needed to go further. I couldn't just leave her dangling, not knowing I had all the ammunition she'd ever try to deny. I wanted her to confront the truth on her own, to feel the weight of her betrayal crush her, like I'd felt when I first saw those messages. One evening, I decided to give her a taste of her own medicine. I set up a fake social media account, one that looked just like her real profile, but with just enough difference to make it believable. I then began commenting on her posts, liking her photos, leaving subtle hints that I was watching. I wanted her to feel that constant presence, that she was being watched. I knew she'd notice eventually, and that's exactly what I wanted. I remember the way her face froze when she saw the messages I'd left. Her eyes darted across the screen, her jaw tightening in frustration. She called me that night, voice trembling, her words desperate. "Who's doing this? Please just tell me. I swear I don't know what you think I've done." I played it cool, calm enough to make her believe I hadn't caught her completely off guard. "I think you know exactly what's going on, Emily. I've been watching, gathering everything. You might as well come clean now because I have all the proof." There was a long pause before she finally whispered, "I don't know what you want from me. I love you. We're supposed to get married." I laughed bitterly, feeling the anger spike through my veins. "Love? You call this love? You've been lying to me for weeks, maybe longer. Maybe you never loved me at all." She hesitated and then mumbled, "You're overreacting. It's not what it looks like." "Oh, it's exactly what it looks like," I snapped. "And I think you're more scared than you're letting on, because you know I've got everything now." That night, I stayed up late going through her messages again. I didn't want to just tell her I knew, I wanted her to realize it on her own. So I sent her a private message from that fake account, making it sound like I'd discovered everything. "If you want to fix this, you better come clean. I'm not playing games anymore." Her reply was quick, "Please don't do this. I'll fix it. Just give me some time." I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and hatred. I'd finally broken her, or so I hoped. That was the point, to make her feel the same helplessness I'd felt when I first saw those messages. But I also knew I had to be careful. She was unpredictable, and I didn't want her to bolt or destroy what was left of our relationship before I had a chance to deliver my message. The next step was to set the trap for her. I arranged to meet her at our favorite coffee shop, just so I could see her face when she finally understood I knew everything. I made sure my phone was fully charged and that I had my evidence ready to show her, just in case she tried to deny it again. When she arrived, her face was tense, her eyes darting nervously around the room. She sat across from me, hands trembling as she sipped her coffee. I looked her straight in the eyes, feeling my heart pounding in my chest. "Emily," I said softly but firmly, "I know what you've been doing. I saw your messages. I know about Jake, about the plans, about everything." Her face drained of color and she looked like she wanted to disappear. "Please," she whispered, voice cracking, "it's not what you think. I made a mistake." "Stop," I cut her off. "You lied to me, cheated on me with our best friend. Do you even realize how disgusting that is? You thought you could hide it forever." She broke down then, tears streaming down her face. She begged, pleaded, but I didn't listen. I just leaned back and let her see the cold resolve in my eyes. This wasn't about her tears. It was about making her understand she'd crossed a line I'd never forgive. That's when I told her the plan I'd been working on. The final move, the one that would make sure she never did this again. I wanted her to feel the weight of betrayal, the loss of trust, the isolation. I was going to leave her with no choice but to face herself. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small box. Inside, I had the keys to her apartment. "You're leaving," I told her. "Tonight I want you gone. I want you to think about what you've done every second you're apart from me." Her eyes widened in shock. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," I said. "You want to keep lying, keep pretending this was just a mistake. Fine, but I'm done. I'm done trusting you, done pretending I was enough. Here are your keys. Pack your things and get out." She stared at me, speechless. I slid the keys across the table, watching her hands tremble as she reached for them. Her entire body was trembling, tears still flowing, but I knew this was the end. The moment she left, I'd finally closed this chapter. As she got up and left the table, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with emptiness. I'd done what I needed to do, no matter how cold it sounded. Because sometimes love isn't enough when betrayal runs so deep. Sometimes the only way to regain your dignity is to walk away and never look back. And that's exactly what I was about to do. That night I watched her pack her bags in silence. The apartment felt cold, emptier than usual. Every corner echoed with memories I no longer wanted to hold on to. Her trembling hands moved quickly. She wasn't crying anymore, just rushing to get out of there before I changed my mind. I kept my distance, feeling a strange mixture of satisfaction and hollow ache. When she finally handed me the keys, her eyes were red, swollen. "You really want me gone?" she whispered, voice barely audible. "Yes," I said. My throat felt dry and my fists clenched before I could stop them. "I want you to think about what you did every second you're away from me. You don't get to come back from this, not anymore." She looked at me one last time as if searching for some flicker of hope, some sign she could still fix this, but I saw right through her. She'd already lost me and she knew it. "Goodbye," I muttered, watching her leave. The door shut behind her with a click that sounded deafening in the silence. I stood there for a few moments, staring at the empty doorway, feeling the weight of everything crashing down. I'd been betrayed, humiliated, and broken. Yet somehow I felt oddly liberated. The days that followed were the hardest I've ever lived through. The house was dead, hollow. I'd walked past her things, remembering the moments she'd smiled at me, kissed me, promised eternity. Now all I saw were her lies. I'd catch myself replaying that last conversation, wondering if I'd done the right thing, if I'd gone too far. But then I'd remember those messages. The way she'd called Jake mine and made plans that didn't include me. That's what kept me steady. I wanted her to feel the loss, not just for me but for what she threw away. I knew I'd never trust her again, and that thought kept me from breaking down completely. I also made sure to cut her off completely. No texts, no calls. I deleted her from my social media, blocked her number. I wanted her gone from my head, from my life. I couldn't afford to keep her as a ghost haunting my mind. I had to move forward, no matter how much it hurt. But I also knew I needed closure. I needed to put an end to the chapter that had been slowly killing me. I started by writing everything down, every detail, every feeling. I wanted to get it out of my head, out of my heart. It helped in a strange way. I called up a friend who'd always been there, told him what I'd found, what I'd done. "Mate," he said softly after I finished, "that's brutal. But honestly, you're better off without her. She betrayed you in the worst way." I nodded, feeling the tears threaten again. "I don't know if I can ever trust anyone again, honestly. How do you come back from this?" He hesitated. "You don't. You just learn to live with it. Use it as a lesson. Never ignore the signs. Never let yourself be so blind. And trust me, once you've been betrayed like this, you'll never see love the same way again." That hit me hard. I knew he was right, but hearing it out loud drilled home how much I'd lost. Still, I told myself I'd survive, that someday I'd find a way to move on. I didn't want to be bitter forever, even if right now I felt like the bitterness was eating me alive. But here's the thing, what I didn't tell anyone for a while was how much I also wanted revenge. Not in a vengeful, destructive way, but to make her see that she couldn't cheat, lie, and betray without consequences. That she couldn't just walk away and pretend it never happened. I needed her to understand what she'd lost, what she'd thrown away. So I started planning, carefully. I knew I couldn't confront her again. That would only make things messier. Instead, I decided to let her think she was in the clear. But I'd already set the trap. I just had to wait for her to step into it. I kept the evidence I'd collected close, hiding it where she wouldn't find it. I wanted her to realize eventually that I'd been watching, that I'd known all along. I didn't want to humiliate her publicly, but I wanted her to feel the loss, the guilt, just enough to make her question her choices. One afternoon, I took a deep breath, feeling the cold wind brush against my face. I knew the moment was coming soon. I'd made sure she'd notice something was off, like an email she'd get from a fake account or a message left where she'd find it unexpectedly. I wanted her to see that I'd been one step ahead the entire time. She was about to realize she'd underestimated me, and that's what kept my resolve firm. No matter how much it hurt, I was finally taking control. I was taking back the power she thought she had, and I knew, deep down, that I wouldn't let her do this to me again. I guess what I learned from all this is that trust is fragile, And sometimes, the only way to heal is to take control, force the truth into the light, and accept whatever consequences come. That's what I was doing now, turning pain into a lesson and revenge into a quiet victory. It wasn't about revenge for the sake of hurting her. It was about reclaiming my dignity, something she tried to steal, and I was ready to see it through. The waiting game was the hardest part. Every day, I'd check my phone, hoping she'd slip up again, hoping she'd step right into the trap I'd set. Meanwhile, I stayed busy just enough to keep from going crazy going to work, locking myself in my apartment pretending I was fine. But inside, the fire was burning hotter than ever. I wanted her to feel how much she'd destroyed, how deep the betrayal went. One evening, I was sitting on my balcony, cigarette in hand, watching the city lights flicker. My mind was racing, replaying the last conversations, the signs I'd missed, the lies I'd believed. I could feel the cold wind on my face, a reminder that I was finally starting to feel something like clarity. That's when I saw her. She was walking down the street, her face pale and tight, clutching a small bag. I knew it was her. I'd set the bait months ago and I could tell she'd taken the hook. Her eyes darted around nervously and her pace was hurried. She looked like a woman who knew she'd been caught, or at least suspected she would be soon. My heart pounded hard enough to drown out the city noise. I locked eyes with her from across the street and my stomach dropped. It was a strange feeling, like I'd somehow finally taken control of the situation. She froze for a second, then hurried her steps, trying to vanish into the crowd. But I wasn't about to let her go that easily. I crossed the street quickly, my boots pounding on the pavement, and called out, "Emily." She spun around, her face draining of color. Her hands trembled, clutching the bag like it was a shield. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice trembling. I kept my tone steady, cold enough to make her flinch. "I knew you'd come here. I saw you last night. I knew you'd try to run from me, hide from the truth. But it doesn't matter where you go. You can't escape what you've done." Her eyes welled up. "Tears, please just listen." "No," I interrupted sharply. "You've lied, cheated, and betrayed everything we had. You think you can just walk away from that? No, this is where it ends." She looked like she was about to break apart. I was scared, okay? I didn't know what to do. I thought I could fix it. I swear I didn't mean for it to go this far. I felt my jaw tight. "You didn't mean to, that's the best you can come up with. You planned this, didn't you? You and Jake, I saw the messages." It was more than a mistake, it was a deliberate betrayal. Her face contorted and she looked like she was fighting herself. "I love you," she whispered. "I never wanted to hurt you," I scoffed, feeling the rage boil over. "Love, that's rich. You want me to believe that after the lies, after the betrayal? You're full of it. You threw everything away, Emily. You played with my heart like it was nothing." She dropped her bag, tears streaming down her face. "Please just give me a chance." I shook my head slowly, feeling a strange calm settle over me. "No, I won't be that fool again, not after what I found out. You're done. I've already made my choice." Her voice cracked. "You're kicking me out just like that." "Exactly like that," I said, voice firm. "You broke us and I'm done fixing what you shattered. You're leaving tonight. Here." I pulled out the keys I'd kept hidden in my pocket and handed them to her. "Take your things and go." She looked at them, then back at me, eyes wide with disbelief. "You're serious?" "Yes," I said. "I want you gone forever. You don't get to come back after this." She hesitated, then took the keys, her hand trembling. "I never wanted to hurt you, I swear." "Save it," I snapped. "You had your chance. Now it's over." Without another word, she turned and hurried down the street, her shoulders hunched. I watched her leave, my stomach twisting, part relief, part heartbreak. It was over, or so I told myself. But as I watched her disappear into the night, I couldn't help but wonder, was I really done? Or was this just the beginning of something else, something darker? I knew one thing for sure, I'd come too far now to turn back. The betrayal had cut too deep, and I was finally ready to walk away, knowing I'd done everything I could. The silence that settled afterward was deafening. I'd taken control again. I'd shown her she couldn't lie her way out of what she'd done. And the next step, I had to rebuild, more cautious, more guarded. But I also knew I'd never forget. Not this pain, not her betrayal, not the moment I finally closed that chapter forever. I picked up the keys, feeling the weight in my hand, and whispered to myself, "Some wounds don't heal, but at least I'm finally free." The days that followed felt like they were carved out of ice. I threw myself into work, tried to drown out the silence in my apartment, but no matter what I did, her absence haunted every corner. Every time I caught my reflection, I saw someone I barely recognized, someone betrayed but also strangely liberated. The weight of her betrayal was still heavy, but I knew I had finally taken back control. I kept the evidence, the messages, the plans, the proof hidden away, locked in a drawer I knew she'd never find. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about making sure I wouldn't be fooled again. I'd learned to trust my instincts, to see the signs I'd ignored. She had played me for a fool, and I refused to be that vulnerable again. One morning, I woke up with a strange sense of clarity. I looked around my apartment, the quiet deafening now. I reached for the keys she'd left behind. They felt cold in my hand, like a physical reminder that I had finally closed that chapter. I took a deep breath, feeling the morning sun seep through the blinds, warming my face just a little. It was a small comfort, but enough to remind me I was still standing. I went to the window, looked out at the city that was still bustling, people moving, life continuing. I realized I'd been living in a kind of limbo, defined by her lies and my pain. But now, that was ending. I was reclaiming my life. I took the keys, walked out of the door, and handed them over to her one last time. No more waiting, no more hiding. I'd finally stepped into the light, even if it hurt. As I left the apartment behind, I felt the weight lift just a little more. I knew she'd regret it, who wouldn't? But I didn't care anymore. I'd done everything I could. I'd faced the betrayal head-on, seen her for what she was, and walked away stronger. That's what mattered. Walking down the street, I felt the cool breeze on my face, the distant sounds of the city filling my ears. I was free. Not from pain, no. That would take time to heal. But from her, her lies, her betrayal, her control over my mind. I was finally truly done. I realized that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes trust has a breaking point, and when it shatters, the only thing left to do is pick up the pieces and walk away. I didn't want to carry her mistakes anymore. I wanted my life back. And I got it. The truth is, betrayal cuts deep. But sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away and rebuilding yourself stronger than ever. I closed the door behind me, feeling the cool air on my skin, and whispered to myself, some wounds don't heal, but at least I'm finally free.